aside from us. So
welcome to the Inspired Evolution. And guys, it's a very yummy treat for me here today. I've got on with me old-time friend, once mentor, just an absolute legend in my life, Mayson Taylor. Mayson, how are you, brother?
So good, man. Really good. And congratulations to you. I only got to see you for like a split second after your ceremony.
Yeah, all married up now.
Got to give you a hug then, though. That's a plus.
Yeah, it's an interesting time now that we actually can't do that. Hey guys, for those that are tuning into Mayson for the first time, if you're in Australia, it's impossible that you're just tuning in for your first time, just because Mason's work is prolific around this country and also now moving its way into the States. But let me just bring you up to speed. Founder of SuperFeast. Our relationship dates way back, and I'm really grateful. Mayson was integral on my journey to, just like dropping deeper into my relationship with myself and my health. And some really great conversations we had in and around there were based on plants and just, building a relationship with myself through building a relationship with plants and the environment around me, the water that I was consuming. And that's informed so much of who I've become today. So I'm eternally grateful to you, brother. And so for me today, just where you were just flagging, like the fact that we can't really have hugs at the moment, this is a very interesting episode for me. Because I've never been Mr. Current Affairs, but there is a really interesting time at hand where, there's a lot going on. And I just really wanted to jump in and have a real conversation on immunity today.
Yeah, let's do it, man.
So you were just traveling for a little bit and you got back just in the nick of time to be quarantined, not to avoid quarantine.
Yeah, I was on Friday night in LA. Tani was like, you know what? I reckon you should just go and jump on a plane right now. I get a feeling. Tani's my fiance. She's like, I just get the feeling that it's like the thing to do. And I was like, you know what, Tans? I think I'm going to be okay. And I was like excited about going and having my first surf up past Malibu, and just like, hanging out with a mate and that kind of thing. So I got a really nice day out of it. But I got back 9 hours after the mandatory quarantine thing came in, which was, but at the same time, that's been sweet. It's been me and Tani at home. That was before everyone really started like taking this thing seriously in Australia as well, before like all the hype and the hysteria to an extent really caught on. So it was like a little bit like, oh, okay. People were like, wow, you're in quarantine that first week. And the fact that, Tani was like, I'm pulling myself out and I'm going to quarantine with you. And then we pulled our daughter out of like, the couple of days of daycare that she has. And so we just kind of started settling in as a family unit, which is an interesting thing in itself because, we're still running the company and we're still, doing our thing, but we'd been dropped into this place where, this is just what the family unit's been doing, not, from like, what it was like in the 20s. This is what it's been like for, tens and hundreds of thousands of years for the family unit, just being in the one place in the home, tending to the fire, which we've got in the backyard going all the time, cooking our meals, cooking lots of meals together, just kind of having that bit more of adaptability and that multidimensionality about your day and allowing the natural rhythm of the family to be that center point that then dictates as when you flow into particular work states. When one parent is often needing to do deep work, the other is able to come and, be at home and be with the toddler. And so on and so forth. It's been a real nice thing that we've been able to do as a family, running a company. I've set my life up that way intentionally, but this has been a whole new level. And so that, we're talking about immunity, that's been probably the best distinction for me in regards to immunity. I've been obsessed for over 10 years about my own immunological momentum, and I've been working on that. And momentum's a really nice tone because, of course, the mind is going to want to look to immunity short term. And when you look at antivirals like Angiographis's and elderberry on the shelves right now and ordering from naturopathic companies, it's like an 8-week lead time to get anything that's an antiviral. And, even the mushrooms here at SuperFeast have all of a sudden everyone in our community, because I've been talking for 9 years about immunity, right? And so a lot of people are kind of like in our community who are there aware of the message, are kind of stepping up their herbal practice right now. So that's a beautiful thing, because I'm not detracting from that. We're going to talk about some real practical takeaways that I don't think are going to be too revolutionary. I hope they're not too revolutionary, because we know how to immunologically potentiate ourselves. And there are a few key things that I think are useful that we can delve into. However, it is always that long-term, that very long-term macro relationship and understanding, not with the word of immunity, but how we relate to and feel what is our immunological potential, our ability to potentiate ourselves. And on the other side of immunity is a vitality and a security within ourselves. And so that dropping into the family, into a place of yin, especially when I got back on the precipice of going from springtime to autumn time, so energetically in our environment, for me, I'm realizing now that I'm not just like hoo-ha in my 20s, really, dripping with all this, this energy, and testosterone myself, where I'm just on cloud nine. Very quickly, I overcame in my early 20s, like severe fatigue and candida quite quickly, because I was a young buck. I was really, I'm healthy, and I'm still young and healthy. Yet, as I start getting on, having conversations with people who, have less of a just do this and you have this, that's a Western symptom. It's a symptomology kind of like approach to it, like what do I take to get immunity? And immunity is a concept, especially a concept in the West. And from the Taoist perspective or the classical Chinese medicine perspective, immunity is not even acknowledged or looked at. There is no such thing as the immune system. There are things. We can look at our qi and protective qi, or our wei qi, our surface level of qi that's circulating through our subcutaneous tissue just beneath the skin, that's almost creating a bit of a force field. And you can, and I like looking at the Western models, and scientific data is like the best, because we can, you can look at what's working and what's not working very quickly, as long as you're not in the cult of modern medicine and scientism. Right, and where there's like that prejudice is overcoming you, and you're trying to justify something by looking at the data. But you can look at that Wei Qi surface immunity being associated somewhat with that surface immunity within the body is natural killer cell activity, somewhat of the neutrophil system, our phagocytic action, our phagocytic cells, so on and so forth. So there are things like that which I'm doing right now to ensure that I'm really on. But to be fair, I'm like that every autumn especially. And I'm like that a lot in my life. There's about a 20% of my focus in what I'm doing now to ensure that in the short term, I'm meeting any particular infection that's in the air. There's always a viral load in the air. There's always pathogens going around. There's always bacteria going around. It's not by coincidence that cleanliness is godliness, is a part of yogic tradition, Taoist tradition, all these traditions that are successful within a health philosophy. Because it's not just, the pendulum swinging crazy right now. And potentially that's an overreaction. Potentially that's exactly what we need to be doing. But nonetheless, the fact that, there's a new influenza every single year. I've been highly aware of this for 10 years, as many herbalists and many people that are just switched on and living a very harmonious, grounded lifestyle, aware of the world that they live in, have a lifestyle that's really ensuring their body's in harmony, therefore their immune system's strong, therefore their qi is strong, and it's cultivating within the organs, therefore the organ function is, it's at a reasonable level, or a very potentiated level, an ideal level. Therefore, you're going to have strong protective qi, protective wei qi, which is going to help you ward off any infection coming into the body. So therefore, you're going to be also, have the potential for your constitution and your surface qi to take care of anything that's invading you, whether that's cold, whether you want to, whether that's wind invading you, whether you want to relate to it more in a Western sense, that's a virus penetrating you via droplets, droplets getting into the respiratory, down to the respiratory cell level, hitting up what's going on, from what I believe it's going on at the moment with the SARS-CoV-2 virus, hitting the cilia, especially the little hairs on the respiratory cells, using its protein envelope, which is highly developed as always, and as influenza is every year, highly developed in itself and its evolution, because we're not talking about innate particles. We're talking always with a viral load. And there's a lot going on about viruses not existing at the moment. Not many conspiracies kind of get to me. That one is thankfully been seen. Surely there's a lot of distinction that can be done in the field of virology and the way infection works. But the fact that viruses don't exist has been one that's been bandied around. But that's, the fact that this is a consciousness that's been around for many, many, many millions of years, billions of years, exists in the polar ice caps and volcanoes, and had a lot to do with our own evolution of our own genetic code, snipping DNA and attaching it to other aspects of DNA and causing spontaneous evolution. One theory, but this is a organism, and there is a world of microorganisms that it's getting a big knock on the Western door right now, that you aren't alone here. And you're not in control. And there are consequences for the way that you live. And those consequences are, influenza starts in Mexico at a swine farm. Farmer gets it, goes to his house. Everyone gets that new strain of influenza. Then one person goes to Mexico City, and then we are unable to fly anywhere in the world. And so we get this huge spread of infection very quickly. And so every year, with this evolving consciousness, and viruses and bacteria are able to transfer information between each other, especially virus to virus, but it's not strain specific. They're able to leave encyclopedias of information in how to continue evolving just in the environment, to be picked up by any other strain that's coming along as you go along. It's a community, and so they evolve to, how am I going to replicate? And so this one's very, it's got a similar pathway to influenza, but it's got a different way of doing it, a bit more of a gnarly way to do it, apparently. And this is like, I'm not an expert on it, but I'm just looking at it in the context of immunity. Even if this is just speculation, and let's just say this is all bullshit, it doesn't matter, because when we look at the outcome is going to be of what we're going to do, it's a very empowering thing that isn't dependent on the situation and something we want to be doing anyway. And I'm not coming from a place of hysteria, and I'm not coming from a place of reaction. And if I am reacting, it's a minute amount, and I'm responding. Ultimately, I can get to that place of responding. And so hit the cilia, get itself into the cell via particular receptors. And then from there is a very sophisticated mechanism for, that particular particle to then stop the cell from exploding itself and cause high amounts of inflammation that calls on the immune system that isn't ready to mediate it and is unaware. And I think I've said on the podcast, it's, and I say this, it's a very crass thing to say, but I like saying it just because it's funny. If it's a flabby, white bread Western immune system, it's able to take advantage. And I don't want to say that because there's seemingly people out there that are going down that have looked after themselves as well. So I'm not saying do this and you won't get it, or judge those. They weren't doing it right. It's not about that. It's just a bit of fun. But from there, you see a proliferation, a cytokine reaction, an inflammatory reaction that isn't coming innately from the body, that's coming from the virus with its intention to replicate. And then when it eventually causes that inflammation, meanwhile, it's hitting the cilia of your cell, which is responsible for moving the respiratory cells around, but also moving out dust particles and mucus from the body. In this instance, with all influenza, and people who have like a chronic illness, they eventually die of pneumonia. What was it? It was actually strep. It was actually like a bacterial infection, or maybe like a viral infection, because you just see that hospitals are breeding grounds for these things. So that's what happens as you go down the line. In this instance, there's a very very, very viscous fluid and mucus in this instance with this infection. These are the reports just coming out of China. I don't know, I'm not an expert, but that are making it very difficult to overcome. And so what do we do? Like, what do we do about this? What do we do with this knowledge? Is it something that we react to? And naturally, there's a lot of people who need to go through their process and need to react. And Tani wrote a really great newsletter for SuperFeast, and it's probably worth me giving you the link so people can read it. Just going through, just respecting, no matter where people are at, just really remembering who everyone really is and not judging them on the where they're at in their process, whether it's in life and on a more micro level here during this, and if you can give people that space and not react to them and just relate to them with who they really are, let them go through what they need to go through, whether it's anger or grief or sadness or whatever, because there's a lot of emotions. I'm not here to speculate what's going on in the world, but from the perspective of the energetics of the body, and what my job is to ensure that I stay in harmony as much as possible and helping other people remain in harmony so that their energy can circulate, therefore their emotions can circulate. So one of those important things for the immune system is, and is touched on in the newsletter, is to ensure at this time where we're so woke in our in this community, we're so woke, not having emotions about things. We're so fucking woke.
Slow down.
Not having emotions about the emotions, because it's hard to do, right? You can speculate all you want. Just don't tie that right now. You can intellectually go and explore everything. Of course, that's fine. That's absolutely what you should be doing. Anyone trying to shut down your right to question what's going on in the world and research and look it up should be shut down. Anyway, is that their right as well? But from a grounded immunological perspective, if we can not react to our own emotions and really sit with our emotions. Now, this is where it gets interesting, because especially here in the Southern Hemisphere, we've clicked over from summertime, late summer. I think I said spring earlier in the podcast. Technically we are going from spring to autumn, but we're going from a late summer, very humid, still a yang, kind of a harvesting period. Now, if we can say it's autumn and the season of the lungs, the metal season within the Chinese philosophy. But if you just look outside, what's the energy doing? It's beginning to descend and it's beginning to come more still, right? So there's more fluid accumulating, right? On the grass, on your car, your metal car, the lung of the metals of the lung. So that's why I'm not talking about the actual lungs when I talk about the Taoist system. They're just like, metal accumulates water and then distributes water. That's kind of what the lungs do. So that, we can just associate the lung system and the energy of the lung qi, right, being similar to that metal element. Very important step, right? So starting to descend with the yin of the time. It's very funny. We start going into quarantine. Of course, we start getting lots of resistance because we're such hustlers and we're so used to getting validation and we're so used to having agendas being met and getting gains. And that's all well and good. But is that what's the best for the energy of your body? And is that a good habit to be plowing on and always in a place of yang and doing an achievement and trying new things and seeing outcomes from those new things? Not saying these things are bad. It's just an excess of anything is going to take you out of balance. Whereas now, it's always here. It's here every year. It's been here for a long time. Just allowing yourself to begin to descend. And that's going to be a key. And so I know a lot of people will go, is there any other resources? Is there a book? And just around that, so we don't have to go too far, I can give you another link to a 30-minute podcast me and Tani did just talking about autumn and how it relates to the lung system and what we can do to support the lungs through that period. There are particular herbs. We'll talk about that. There are, particular foods. We can talk about that. But if you can just go and watch what the trees are doing, what's happening with condensation, what's happening with the temperature, pause, drop into your heart, feel, and just then go with it. You've got all season to practice this. You've got next year to practice this. You've got the next couple of decades to practice this. That's a starting key right now. And if you're in the Northern Hemisphere,
to quickly tuck something in there, I actually created a meditation on Insight Timer for autumn that reflects exactly what you just shared in terms of dropping in with nature, focusing on the condensation, feeling all of that. So that resource,
I'll get that. Share that with me as well. That's that'd be really great to share out with the community, because we need as much as possible shared out right now. That's a really good place to start. And if that feels ambiguous, go under the ambiguity and feel that feeling. That's a great meditation. Don't label that ambiguity, right? It's great we have this technology that can allow us to bypass seasonality. Or is it? Right? You know, it is and it isn't. You need to find your balance and your harmony. Now, immunologically, right? If you are tapped out, if you're stressed out, if you're extending yourself, and if you are trying to do and achieve and get the game and, you know, have killer white blood cells all the time and getting them, getting that checked all the time, you're going to hit a big glass ceiling. And that might be really appropriate for you to do right now. And your mind might need to be satiated right now, and that's okay, because that might need to be the path that you follow, so that you can begin to ease any of the stress or anxiety that you're feeling, so you can ease into the yin, the descending yin of the season. But think about what I've said in a span of 10 or 20 years. That is something which is going to help you be very successful immunologically. And does that mean you never get sick? Absolutely not. I would never say that. There's too many variables for me to guarantee that. But yet there is another element that it's like, if you become robust and adaptable, if your mind is able to go from a high hustle place where you're fucking kicking goals to a place where you're really able to nestle in to yourself. And this is where personal practice is going to come in right now for what people could be exploring. First thing, really start feeling those two aspects, that yin and yang aspect of your practice. Because one part of you might be really frothing on the fact that there's all these new meditations being shared, and these new yoga classes that are coming online, and there's this process to release tension from your psoas, and you want to do these new things. I'm feeling it as well. I'm really exploring all these different practices with my teacher as well, and I'm really loving them. Now, start to feel what's the other side of that for your practice, and what yin is going to represent, which is going to be very handy, because I'm enjoying the fact that if you can really take advantage of what this autumn season is, and it's highly, what is metal? It's reflective, right? It reflects. And what else are you going to do at the end of the season when you've harvested? You're looking back at the farm. You're looking back when you planted, what you planted, where you planted it. You're looking at, right, I was doing this every morning. I was getting up at like 4:30 every morning to do this thing. And did that help me, or did that not help me? You're reflecting. You're looking back and tweaking and refining. And it's a very obvious one for autumn. We know that metal is that time to cut out that which has not been effective, but it comes through that beginning of gaining insight through what has occurred. We are beginning to attract the water, which carries all the information from everything we've been doing through that woody spring season of the liver and that fiery heart season of summer. And now we're beginning to distill all that insight and everything we've done, and we can get very real with ourselves with the type of diet that we've had, the way we've approached and reacted to this entire situation, right? The way we've been with our partners, our children, our parents, all those kinds of things. And you gain that little bit of insight. You watch what happens to your nervous system if you feel you start making a little bit of traction. And if you're thinking about it over your entire lifetime, there's no pressure on you to become perfect right now, of course, because you're in the cycle. You're perfect and you're imperfect. We start that distillation process so that when we get to that stillness of winter, we can sit in and really absorb the wisdom and that inner sage that comes from that stillness. Therefore, within our personal practice, what's important right now is for us to go for consistency. Even if it's just balancing out all that newness and that exploration of that yang, meeting that same place within us daily, every second day, once a week, whatever you can swing. But it's a real beautiful time to just find solace and a real safety in that place where you might be doing a different technique. That's fine, but recognize you're coming back to that same consistent place and you're checking in with yourself and you're becoming still. That as an immunological foundation, I think is one of the most important things right now, because then you don't have to be thinking for the rest of your day what's going to be good for you to get your nervous system in a place where it's in a rest and digest calm place enough so that your hormones can be in sync and they can get into their own harmony, because that's a symphony, right? It's all, if you're going too hard, all of a sudden the adrenals don't get burnt out. They're not able to make their little minute secretions of their beautiful hormones in time with the rest of the orchestra. So it sounds like shit. If your hormones are sounding like shit, then your immune system, of course, isn't going to be potentiated, because your metabolic communicators in your endocrine system aren't going to be potentiated either. Therefore, you're not going to have the energy, because you're going to be stressed out, to build tissue, to build bone marrow, to replenish the spleen, for the spleen to really suck out what it's getting from these great soups and stews and home cooked meals that you're making right now. That's immunity, and that's what we're all having the possibility to explore right now. And it's a beautiful thing. And we'll explore it next year, potentially. We never know when it's over, but potentially we're exploring it 20 years from now. So it's really a nice time to put a stake in the ground. And when you do that and you go to that same place, you don't have to be thinking about what you're going to be doing for the rest of the day in order to be healthy. You can get a little bit more of just it emerging. It becomes a little bit easier for you to approach your supplement. I call it my supplement ceremony, just with a little bit more ease, less of a need for this to stressful, like I need this to do this, I need this to give me this game. You've got some more perspective. Your herbal practice, you're in touch with your intuitive nature. If you have a relationship with particular herbs, because you're in that place where you're connected to yourself, it's time to do it now, because it's the season. It's the beginning of the season. And then when you're really humming, by the time when we're in the stillness of winter, you're able to be drawn to that's necessary. And you can still have your 20% of your responding to what's going on out there in the world, but far out, it's got a real strong foundation.
I love that. Thank you so much for sharing so much around the energetics behind all of that and how to really settle into the cycle. It's interesting because we're talking about settling into our cycle, which, for the one mind is obviously but for the essence of who we are, really, really just feels solid, and just what that emerges, being able to, and this is what, I learned early on from you as well, just like keeping that little bit slippery for the mind, but the essence of you really, really, really gets it. So one of the questions I've got then is, for you coming back from LA, spending 2 weeks in quarantine, there's a fire in the backyard, we're cooking meals at home, you mentioned stews, and we're building that relationship. We've got our supplement ceremonies. What does a day in the life of Mayson Tani and the little Papa look like?
So it's pretty consistent at the moment, although I know that's like the answer, like that everyone goes like, well, it's always different, and it's always chopping and changing, it's like, it's a really like, it's a kind of a boring thing, but there are some principles that are really in place for me at the moment. I've come back to some basics, and really I've allowed myself to get to a place where I'm really connecting with that, a lot of the excitement I had about my immune system, and I'm allowing myself to relate a little bit past my immune system and starting to relate a little bit more to my chi. And if I can cultivate my chi and get some perspective of what that means, because as a theory, that's just, it's just like, cool, it's just something to do, and I could potentially just go and trust the Taoist master's practice and just do them over and over and over again for years, and hopefully start to feel this cultivation of chi. And a lot of people like doing that. I generally don't. I need to be really, like, before I really commit to something, I need to really be perceiving something.
Visceral,
but that's where I'm
looking for.
I've really been, I've been during, and it does correlate to lung season. Lung comes up, gets its real dose of chi 3 a.m. to 5 a.m. And so during that time, I've really, just made a concerted effort to ensure that I've got, no draft coming onto the body, because during that time is when the Wei Qi, so that surface energy that we've been talking about, which is very yang, retreats into the body to get replenished. And so there's nothing protecting you. So if you're, I say naked, but if you're sprawled out, nothing on you, draft coming across you, it's just that time where it's potential for invasion of the body of cold. And so that's something I'm like, it's worth everyone being onto, just to go with the rhythm of your chi. And then we're still in that lung system between 5 and 7 a.m. And so I've been up just after 5 most days. And it's in that period where we're in the large intestine, the yang organ to the yin organ of the lung. And so that's definitely about letting go. When we talk about letting go what's no longer needed, we're doing it we're in that cycle every single day. And so I've been trying to, no, not trying, I've been getting up, and I've always tried to have the intention of having my lifestyle be in that flow, my diet be in that flow, that I'm moving my bowels in that 5 to 7 period, whether that's prior to movement or after. And if it's prior to movement, I know I'm in a real flow for myself. That might just not be the way it works, even though it's the theory of the Taoist thought. So I just hate any of those things bringing morality. Like, oh my God, it's fucking 7:05 and I didn't take a shit yet. Like that's like it's like, and then you're like, well, hang on, no, it was daylight savings. Daylight savings. So technically, it was, it was like, the mind goes there when you obsess over these things so often. So I don't like it to bring morality. But that's a time to really start getting your body, really getting your body moving. So, for me, I've been very, I like new and extravagant things. For me, it's been up, drinking a warm water first thing in the morning, right? So that's been, and, especially when you look at this is not a reaction, but when you look even just in theory at the, when the infections hit, the COVID-19 infection is present, the later stages that it presents, because there's a lot of different phases of the infection. In the later stages, it's just such a coid, like just cold and damp. People just like they just present this thick white coating on their tongue, even though they didn't have it as a constitutional element. So there's all of a sudden there's so much fluid and stagnation, and that gets very hard to move up the body. So there's a lot of unproductive cough apparently that's happening at those later stages where they're coughing, but they're not actually able to move that mucus and that fluid. Yeah. So, I'm kind of a lot like I'm going, yeah, right. Well, I don't want that anyway, and I'm like having a nice warm water and I've been really connecting my digestive system going, wow, of course, my digestive system loves being warm, and just like, it's gotten a little bit cold, and that's just pouring like hot water over an engine, and it's got a bit of ice on it. So I've been really enjoying that. And I bring that up again because, I'm with my Taoist herbalist friends in China, and I'm like, what's like your number one like herbal tonic? And they're like, and I'm like, they're like, it's a hot water. I'm like, boring.
But it comes up. You get me again.
Yeah, comes up a lot though. Hot water. First thing in the morning. So I've been doing a nice warm water. Sticking to I move between having a lot and a little of clay. So like a binder. So whether it's clays, my bentonite clay is where I sit in terms of my core binder practice to ensure that I'm getting all metabolic and environmental toxicity out of my body. And then every now and then, if I've had like a couple of wines the night before, might do a charcoal. So that's every couple of weeks I'll have a bit of charcoal as well. I don't like it too dehydrating otherwise. And then from there I'll move on to my movement practice. So just a real big heart, just drop into the heart and just feel the infinity and the stillness of myself and my body, because I'm a real mover. Oh, I'm going down. I'm like surfing through this meridian and just, like I love going on the adventures. So if it happens, it happens. I don't whip myself, but at the same time, that's my practice, coming really right now into my stillness and my presencing, and then just going into a nice full blown practice during that time. It's the time, to do it according to the Chinese medicine wheel. Getting a bit of a sweat on. So I'm like, just going like in some real nice dynamic stretching at the moment. It's been working me real exploratory. Taking my dog for a nice run at the beach, catching, just getting, down. I can't go naked at the beach. So I'm down in my Speedos at least, just getting as much of those morning rays, just hitting my eyes. Just making sure that I'm, really getting in rhythm with the Earth's electromagnetic pulse, so that I'm not getting sucked into this technological one all the time. And then getting back, and we're having a nice warm brekkie after that. Normally for me, probably most of the time I'm going to have a tonic. A lot of the time before my go out and have a little bit of a run in that, I'm doing like either like a big Shazandra, because my liver is like, I'm a liver person, so that's why it's relevant for me. So I'm having like a big Shazandra, or I'm doing a big cordyceps, just because I like having cordyceps before I go for a run or something.
So yeah.
It's so good. I mean, it's palpable. Just how much lung qi you can cultivate, and therefore how much invigoration that brings to the blood. Happens to be one of my favorite herbs to be taking in autumn. Happens to be one of my favorite herbs to take when there's infection around, is cordyceps. So then I'll generally have like a nice, big like hot chocolate or something like that with my brekkie. And that's where I'll put in a lot of my lung herbs, the herbs that I take again, like in autumn anyway, but especially when there's infection in the air. Those are the herbs that are tonifying the lung and the spleen, because what occurs in the body from the energetic perspective is we are extracting the qi from the food, the gu qi from the food via the spleen. So we want to make, like, I'm just in that place where I'm enjoying really easily digestible. I'm not having a cold salad in the morning. I'm liking a congee, maybe a porridge, but I'm doing like a fruit toast if it's if that's rocking as well, but like something nice and warm. But then move up to the lung. We're also cultivating all that energy and extracting all that qi from the air that we're breathing, from the atmosphere. And then from there, those are combined into our true human qi. And so from the true human qi, we have a yin and then a yang. And the yin is going to go through our inner, there's like real inner meridians, and go and nourish our vital organs. The yang qi is going to go and become that wei qi that we've spoken about, that surface immunity. And so right now, at this time, I'm taking those herbs. Yes, because, there's just all this talk going on, but it's what I do in autumn anyway. And what I people are wanting to take current action, the qi herbs are very useful. Astragalus, there's a reason why it's one of the most used herbs in China right now, probably along with licorice. Licorice is just great at unbinding the spleen, right? And so it's a great, in terms of if you are in that space where you'd really appreciate being able to take some strong action based on what the Chinese herbal system is doing on the ground, it's licorice, it's ginger, like a nice decocted 20-minute, cook your fresh, or you can, if you prepare it in honey and so on and so forth. But that's all well and good. But fresh ginger's fine, with your licorice, and then with the astragalus, and then additionally white Atractylodes is another really beautiful one. So, I mean, it just so happens, and it's like such a cheesy plug, and I'm not trying to, but the Qi blend, we just launched it in February because I wanted it to be out for autumn, but it just happens to coincide with the herbs that they're using in preparation in China whenever there's a pathogen like this around. And so that's the astragalus, the white Atractylodes, the poria is another key preventative herb during this time, because that's, yes, tonifying the spleen, but supporting the spleen to move fluid and dampness. And so when you get to, if, in the instance, if there's a COVID-19 infection, or whatever they're treating, they're not referring to it as COVID-19 in classical Chinese medicine because there's no pathogen. You're looking at what kind of invasion, whether it's a damp heat or a cold, a cold damp. When it gets to that point, it's a really gnarly one. This, like apparently when you hear like it's like jumping through different layers of the body. You can't peg it down. It requires very to the minute
targeted
tending by an acupuncturist who's actually practicing classical Chinese medicine, and that means not getting sidelined or distracted by the Western terminology, the Western acknowledgement of actual pathogens or symptomology, just watching the body and treating the body specifically. But apparently it's jumping all through many different layers. But poria is one of the herbs that gets used in the later stages and is one of the top preventative herbs during this time to ensure that your body is enabled to transform fluid and move it through the body. And it's kind of in the West, it's like diuretic. So that's the way it's working. So those are the kinds of herbs that I'm having in my tonic, plus the mushrooms. Poria is a mushroom. You're right. Cordyceps is a mushroom, but I'm whacking in a bit of chaga if I have it. I don't have any at the moment because we're cleared out. But I'm having it if it's there. I'm having and reishi will generally come in at night because I always ensure that the mushrooms are there. At this time, from the herbal approach, and I'm doing mostly Taoist herbs. But there's lots of Western herbs, of course, that are relevant. But when I'm at this period, I'm supporting my lung and I'm supporting my chi. I really see those mushrooms getting into that deep, innate immunological aspect of myself. And so we see that we're turning on lights within the immune response. We're hitting receptors within the immune system that are leading to the capacity to modulate other immune activities, and that's going to mean regulating inflammatory responses. So from a chi perspective, that's just you're creating harmony within yourself, and that's why it's nice when you get in touch with your chi, because you can really start to feel instinctively when it's time to tone down a herb and tone up another, even if theoretically the one you should be taking is like chaga. You feel it's time to tone it down because it's about your chi. It's not about science saying you need to ramp up your white blood cells as much as possible right now. Not that that's bad. So I have my tonic, and then from at that point, it's a lot of play with the toddler. Tani and I have been in communication about who's working and who's not working, because we're very busy right now. There's a lot changing, and there's a lot going in. But it's a lot of time in the sun, tell you that much. There's much time in the sun, whole body sun exposure as possible, as much full body sun exposure as possible. How long have we been talking about sun? I mean, how long have we been talking about getting D's on your B's? And that can be balls or boobs and bums. But that as a practice during this time of year, and really trying to get as much of that constitutional vitamin D, that sun energy into your body to prepare for the winter and immunologically prepare yourself, very important. So that means I'm having fats in my diet, animal fats in my diet, to enable me to actually go and create that vitamin D. So if you're on the vegan spectrum, make sure that you're looking at supplementing those fat soluble vitamins that we're getting from animal products. Like, things like emu oil is probably like my favorite. And that's kind of what gets like a lot used in, like, for me in the Southern hemisphere. But and I also like fish oils. I only really like Rosita fish oil. So I'm taking that. It's a fermented cod liver oil. It's like the only one that's, like, for me, non-rancid, and the only one that actually makes me feel really good. But I'm on that because I want, my A's and D's, and I want my K's, I want my, I really want my, like, that vitamin K coming into the body, so that I'm actually able to create the vitamin D and the melanin in order to help my body potentiate and protect itself. So that's when the supplement ceremony comes in. Because I'm because I'm not able to be outside a lot of the time, I am doing a little bit of a therapeutic grade 10,000 IU vitamin D with a bit of K supplementation, just at the moment, if I feel I'm inside a little bit too much. My cod liver oil, I'm taking, smashing my iodine. So I mean, there's so many things in the mix that I'm just trying to bring them to the forefront there when I have my little supplement ceremony. Yeah, but that's kind of like that's where I'm sitting at the moment, so not too much, people coming in like wanting like everything that they can be taking in order to get their immune system ramped up. I'm probably toned off more than I've really toned it up over the years. I'm really working on my hydration, and so I'm using a molecular hydrogen in my water. Really ensuring that I'm working on that. I'm just using my super cells. It's a good, it's a good source of molecular hydrogen. I'm dropping that in my water here and there. My water first thing in the morning, I want to make sure that my inflammation's down as much as possible. So that means, dietarily, I'm not doing processed foods. And I'm doing well cooked foods as well, and I'm slowing down when I eat so that my body can do it. But MSM is I'm back, I'm gonna like a heap teaspoon of MSM first thing in the morning to make sure that my liver's just processing all that goodness. And yeah, I mean, when it comes down, it just comes down to your basic elements. You want to make sure that you got like that full power sun exposure, water exposure. From the earth, you got your food and your herbs, and then you got your personal practice, right? And deep breathing, of course, is like, of course, at the moment, you're crazy if you're sitting down and you're practicing not to even just be sitting down and doing a very simple 4 in, hold for 4 out, back again, as like my teacher says, Benny, is like, just draw in all those gifts and all that magic, and then on that hold, let it really seep into your cells. And then on that out breath, share it out. Share out what's no longer needed. It's really share. No, not even. You don't have to shed what's. And that's what I like about it. I've really got with autumn. You're not just going fuck you and cut that off. I don't need that anymore. Just let it go. Like let it go. And it's like when you die, your body's gonna let go, and you're gonna be offered to the earth and the microorganisms, and you're gonna become dirt, and then you're gonna become beautiful. A beautiful foundation of the earth itself. And so you're not just like go and just get out of here. So on that out breath, it's a really beautiful attitude. And that's something I've been thinking about lately. I'm kind of thinking of more of as a comedy skit, kind of like a bacteria master chef. You imagine you have like bacteria who have been living all their lives in different humans, and they're talking about how they prepared and what they chose that human to eat and what kind of practices, what kind of water it was drinking, and then they're presenting the body, the deceased body. And so I kind of often think about like, how are you preparing yourself as you're offering back to the earth when it's your time to kind of like have your last breath. And whether you're whether you kind of like go down the spagyric route where you get burnt and then all your that mineral complex of your ash gets offered, or whether you go in and become a tree, or you're in there, whatever it is, your body, just think about what kind of meal are you preparing for that bacteria. That'll kind of gets that, and I don't care what anyone thinks about that. What I care is, did it work to get you thinking long-term and macro about your immune system? Because you can take all the mushrooms you want, and it's been proven that they're going to have, like chaga and reishi and cordyceps and shiitake and turkey tail are going to have very direct impacts on your white blood cells. And that's wonderful. Now, that should be like that 20% focus. The 80% focus is what you're doing consistently to stay in harmony. So just say we take away, just say we can't get them anymore. Just say, all of a sudden you can only forage for what's in your environment. Are you still solid? You might be taking away 20% of your efficacy, but there's a lot there that you can still be working on, that's created that immunological foundation. That's what I want to make sure that everyone's left with tonight. It's tonight here.
Tonight, whenever you're tuning in. Mace, thank you so much for taking the time and energy to articulate that. One of the questions that is coming to me is, in terms of, I know a lot of us are that are in isolation are, we still have permission to go out to parks and still find some movement in and around there. Some of us are not as inclined or find less time, which is an interesting conversation. Maybe we should prioritize it. But movement practices while we're at home. What's the lowest hanging fruit in your opinion for us to just reap the maximum benefits from? I know this time is much more about dropping into stillness and allowing things to sort of move while we're kind of in that stillness. But at the same time, is there something just to, while the call from the collective awareness is just to be more sedentary and more stuck in one spot, how do we keep ourselves kind of flowing a little bit?
Yeah, my kind of like cheat meal in with movement is just I go on my rebounder, so I go on my mini trampoline. So I've got that at my there, and so it does this depends. Now the thing is, there's lots of yoga classes, so whatever's accessible to you. So I'd be looking at what you're familiar with. Definitely what you're familiar with. And what this is a time to shatter is I'm doing yoga, I'm doing Pilates, I'm doing a weights class. You should still do those things because, what you're going to be getting is a movement of your body and a movement of your lymph and a movement of your blood. So don't get stuck in I don't know what to do. Just, I don't know, just go and do some push-ups, do some running on the spot. Do some burpees, do an online yoga class. Just go and do it and start moving and think about the fact that you're going to be moving your blood. What it is a time to do is shattering labels and shattering that you are doing something and start connecting to your body. And it doesn't matter whether because you're like, oh, I'm feeling different when I'm doing yoga. I'm feeling different when I'm doing Pilates, and I'm feeling different when I'm doing jumping jacks. I'm feeling different when I'm doing burpees and push-ups and sit-ups. But what this is a really good time to do is shatter just start shattering all those labels just a little bit to the extent that it's useful. Just connect to your body and start doing what's useful to your body. Have 20%, or maybe it'll start at 80%, that you're just moving your blood and moving your lymph and ensuring that you're getting blood to your musculature, and knowing that if you're weight bearing as a male, that's going to be very good for you. For your production of testosterone, and therefore that's going to make sure that you're potentiated immunologically and just in every way. It's going to bring a twinkle to your eye. But whether you're starting off with that, being 80%, just shift over to that other side and just really start allowing any of those labels to drip away. Dietarily, exercise-wise, it's just at that point where allow that, get it down to about a 20% usefulness of labeling your diet and all that kind of stuff, just so it allows you to communicate with people. And then when you're in your own personal time, when you're in personal practice, I implore you to just start allowing that to drip away as much as possible and allow your body and you and moving your body and the relationship with your body to be what's occurring when you're doing all of those things, or whatever it is. But and then the short answer is just get up 5 to 7 a.m. I get if you have kids, it doesn't work, and possibly, or you just ensure that you create a beautiful nectar of a nighttime routine, have that nectar be there in your sleep practice so that you're drawn to it earlier so you can get up before the kids. I know that's not realistic for many, but it's, you've got 10 years, start working on it now, right? Really work on getting up and doing what's going to be magic for you. Write it down. Go and manifest that shit through consistency of your actions. And you might fuck it up constantly. You might never get it perfect, but who cares? Just keep on going. Get up in that 5 and 7 period. Maybe have a little bit of a meditation, and then just do what's familiar to you, or just get a class. And then, just go run on the spot. Go run when there's no one on the streets. Whatever. Just get yourself moving and sweating. And just, if you stick to that principle, just be consistent. As long as you've got that yin time that you come back to where you can really make sense of it, then the momentum will be present.
I love that. Thanks for sharing that, Mayson. One of the conversations that I've been having with myself recently is really around my relationship with my sleep. Just because I think Western medicine's having a bit of a conversation around that as well, in terms of, that's really where you restore and regenerate. And for me, it just made a lot of sense. If everyone's going through a lot of things around me, how do I really just make sure that I'm showing up the most restored, ready version of myself? And for me, sleep's been kind of critical, something that I've just been, just really trying to potentiate in a really nice way. Any pointers on that? Any advice on that in terms of what's in your field?
Yeah, just to give a non-specific answer again. So think about, so we think about the fact that there's all this stuff in life that's like, so sleep's boring, right? I'm not saying this is the fact. I'm just saying, let's just say in this terms of the story, sleep's boring. It's like this thing that we need to do. It's, like it's
not sexy.
It's kind of like the day ends when we go to bed and we wake, and I know there's like coolness and biohacking around our sleep, but there's even like an agenda there. So sleep's the ultimate yin, no doubt. Our Western world needs to be doing something in and around our sleep. But there needs to be some kind of like activity for us to justify it. We need to go in and hack it. So sleep's boring. Then we look at the other thing. What are we doing? We're working our asses off. We're overdoing it with our social obligations, which we don't have to do now, which is why this is such a good opportunity for you not to have those, because they kill you, right? They kill you. I'm not saying your friends are trying to kill you or going out, and like enjoying social life. I love my friends, but you watch your tendency to overcommit yourself. You burn through your energy. Think about that accumulated over 50 years, right? Same thing, you don't want to say yes to them, and you're just not, to be fair, you're not ruthless enough or honest enough. Or maybe you don't have the capacity to communicate. And so that's just something for you to work on in a gentle way that you can create that boundary for yourself where where you don't have any more energy to expend because you haven't got the rest of your shit in order, right? So what I see is we're hustlers, we're labeling ourselves as whatever, vegans, ketos, we're prime, where we move in ourselves in a primal way, all these things take up, just like that. That's like, these things are really exciting. And then, to be honest, they might shine some light on sleep, but as a Western world, just take away the explanation of what sleep does for you. And you do all this kind of, I get lots of immunity and, fucking regenerate when I sleep. Now I'm interested in it. Now it doesn't look so boring anymore. What's actually going on is people associating with being all these labels and projecting their innate self excessively, not a little, like a little bit. Fine, I've got labels. I'm happy to communicate. I'm like, into Taoist tonic herbalism. Doesn't define me. It's just a fucking thing so you know what I'm talking about. Sorry for swearing so much. But that is all boring. All those people over-identifying with a label and allowing that to drive and justify their life, that's boring. That's a boring person. That's a person who can't have super ongoing and dynamic conversations, who's getting locked down in a set of rules, right? Excessively, not just using it as a cool walking stick as they go along. And then when they realize the walking stick isn't useful anymore, they can drop it because it's about walking their path. That's when you don't need to justify your life and all these things, every little aspect of your life. Sleep is just sleep. It's just the time when you become still and you yin, and it's beautiful. And magic happens. And there's no outcomes or gains. It's just yin. You just settle into yourself. Yin is convalescing and it's healing. Where does that get? Don't worry, the yang comes every day. Don't worry about it. It's a reflection, and me as well. I'm like pointing at you and three fingers straight back at me. So I'm not judging anyone with this, but it's whether we can become interesting enough that we can start to settle in and not need long-term, short-term is fine, not need all these techniques and this reasoning to make sleep this priority, right? That's the key of it. That's why we opened with these yin practices in our conversation, right? So there, potentially that's just going with the rhythm. As the sun goes down, you can go to your phone if you want, and you go to settings and you type in color, and you look, color filters comes up, and you go down to color filters and you turn it on, and you make sure intensity is all the way to the right and hues all the way to the left. And then you've got red light on your phone. So, there's no blue light on your phone. All right, well, that's good. That just makes sense. Then let go of all these techniques and the fact that you think you're a biohacker because you're doing all these kinds of things. That's as I said, I like a little bit of it and it's good, but But excessively, if you can just let it go, and so then the ritual takes you towards just starting to have, some beautiful time with your family and with yourself. If you have to work, if you're watching yourself going, well, that's impossible for me because I'm hustling on running this thing. Okay, just observe yourself, observe the reality of your energy and where you'd like to be at that time and what you're needing to do, and execute what you're doing with integrity, knowing that you've got a vision for the kind of rhythm that you want to be in your life. And really just allow that sleep and that yinness just to be still, and just allow yourself to go to it, and then allow yourself to emerge from it. That's what I'd kind of say. At the same time, I love having a tonic with herbs like ziziphus and, just to help me get to sleep. Reishi, beautiful one. If I'm really needing down regulation, ashwagandha is a beautiful tonic. Nice strong chamomile, of course. I absolutely love that stuff. I like, if you can't stay asleep, right? Like yin jing tonics like Romania or Hishawu is really beautiful to help you create that yin kidney essence foundation grounding for you to stay asleep through the night, because there's always going to be these little pieces. I'm not saying don't work on it. There's always going to be these little tweaks and pieces. Just they don't need significance on them. They're just maintenance, and it's not going anywhere. You're not going to be able to, get that much achievement. It's not like a shareholders meeting. Yeah, you're not going to be able to. The dividends are going to be very subtle, and only those that have slowed down enough to develop their shen and their wisdom and their insight of who they are, and their understanding of who they are, feeling their emotions, not creating emotions about the emotions, and just sitting and. We're all work in progress. I mean, I'm, working on this, working on this hard and soft for a long time, been like, hang on, it's like the whole thing, like I've got this desire to be still and have sleep, but the only way to, to go and have that stillness is to have no desire. Therefore, my desire to have stillness is the thing that's in the way. Like, I'm in with all of you. It's not clear to me, but just, hey, keep on going, get into rhythm.
Yeah. I'm loving it. Thanks heaps, Mayson. Thanks so much for the most potent reminder that I'm walking away with from this podcast is there's a lot of things we can be doing, but also not allowing just that frequency of I should be doing this, and I should be doing that, and I should be doing this, and you end up shooting all over yourself, and then the stress and anxiety that causes in your system in terms of all the things I should be looking for, rather than just going yo. Okay, energy of autumn. Cool. I'm going to naturally come in and just find my way, find my rhythm, find my sway, maybe even find a little bit of my own swagger with the elements and the rhythm that's coming through now, and just allow myself to sort of embed myself to just the way things are flowing around me, and not sort of cranking up the dial in terms of, like, this is what I really could be doing, this is really what I should be doing, and now I'm just wiring myself even further around the things that don't need wiring around. And I think time is naturally calling for us to do that anyway, by bringing us home, by removing a lot of the distractions that are there in our day-to-day anyway. Time to come in and drop in with the rhythm. So thanks so much for such an epic reminder, brother, and your time and energy here today. Really appreciate it.
Yeah, pleasure, man. Yeah, everyone just keep chipping away at it and do it your way. Do it. You don't look too much. Get little clues from everyone else, and then find your way into harmony. Sleep is intrinsically interesting. You just need to find your way that the magnetism is generated. The magnetism towards your practice is generated. So you don't have to force yourself to go and do these things. Forcing's great for a little bit. We don't want to do that long term ultimately. So yeah, as you said, let's just forge our path.
I love it, brother. And thank you so much for being here. Thank you, as always, for just the work you put into yourself. I know your own self-explorations kind of lead us to having such informed conversations. Thanks for just setting yourself up as a dojo for yourself to exercise so many things in. People like me get the benefit of reaping some of those rewards, so I really appreciate that, brother. And as always, wishing you all the best, naturally. And for those tuning in, for me, a great place to touch base with Mace is superfeast.com.au. We've got a lovely little relationship. If you drop in the word inspired, you get a bit of love on your mushies as well. So that's really awesome. But also, Mace, I really just want to thank you. Like in this time for me, just to reflect back to you, just the epicness of what I see you as being in our community as a member. Just, there was all these stuff going on around, like a lot of people are talking about fear, a lot of people are talking about love, a lot of people are talking about a lot of things, all worthy conversations to be having, collaboration, all this great stuff. And I just sort of felt, hey, like the conversation around immunity, like it's a virus. We're not having a conversation around immunity. And it was just the ease with which it was just like, yo, Mace, and you're like, we're on it. And it was just, boom, here we are. I just really respect and value that relationship and just what you stand for and what you embody for us, brother. So thank you so much for doing that.
Yeah, thanks, man. I really appreciate it. Yeah, crazy time, eh? Lots of people, and this is where, what we just said, like you go, like there might be, there's lots of things that you don't know that are happening, and there's lots of variables, and some people are really feeling fear, and some people are really feeling motivated by their fear and feeling like they need to pedestal and tell everyone else what's happening. And, a lot of people are feeling the joy and feel that, we're transcending and just remember that, ultimately, if we're not talking, somewhat objectively, then what we're doing is we're feeling, what's going on for us, and we need to explain it and project on us because, to be honest, we're attention seeking. And so just be very, you do it, I do it. Just have a lot of compassion for yourself and others as we go through this and figure out what's going on. Probably not going to know what's going on for some time. Just, ground into yourself. You can see what is in your control and what it's worth getting up in arms about and what's not.
And you totally got this.
Cheers, bro.
Hey guys, if you enjoyed this video, give it a like, leave us a comment, and if you want to stay in tune for new episodes launching every Monday, hit subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Stay inspired to evolve.